Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to effortlessly take your photos from this to look like this. So when you're editing photos, of course, the first thing you want to do is select the best images that you have. You want to find ways to make it more either relatable or more of a memory, or even just more nostalgic. There's a few ways of doing that, and one of the ways is making it look kind of like film. Now, if you've been following this channel for a little while, you'll see in my earlier videos that I go out and shoot a lot of film. That's because I like to have the nostalgic feel in my photos, something that reminds me of film and movies, and something that feels more like a memory. Now, taking photos with film and digital is quite different. There's quite a few elements that go into the process on each of them that vary quite a bit. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go through one of these programs that helps you get that look. Now, there's many ways to achieve a filmic look, but there's a program that can help you get dozens of film styles in just a few seconds. With this program, there's quite a few popular film stocks, including a few of my favorite, which is Kodak Gold and Kodak Portra. For the longest time, I couldn't really get the same filmic look as I would, well, on film. So I went out and shot a lot of film. I would process it. I even made a cool little kit that I can process and scan everything on just within a little briefcase. For the longest time, I would try to recreate some of the film photos that I would take on my film camera with my digital images, and it would take me a long time to process and get something that looked similar, but not quite exact. Now, this program, Dehancer, has done quite a bit to replicate film, and they let me try out the program for a while, and I'm really happy with it. So let's just dive into it and get started. All right, when you open up Lightroom or Photoshop, whichever one you want to use, you're gonna grab the image that you want, go into the develop, and right away, you're just gonna prepare the image before taking it into Dehancer. So we're gonna drop the contrast quite a bit, lower the highlights so we have the detail there, just so then our histogram here is a little more in the center. Maybe bump up the shadows just a bit. Down, down. Maybe the whites just a tad bit. There we go. So we just kind of compress the image a little bit. And then we're going to right click, edit and Dehancer Lightroom plugin, edit with a copy of the Lightroom adjustments. So it's going to make a new file. We're going to open it up in this program. And there we go. So here, I've already made a preset for this. So if we go into here, we go to my presets. This is one of the cool features I like about this is you can have presets. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, there we go. This is the preset that I made for this specific image. But what we're gonna do is just go through and pick, let's just reset the image. Let's see if we can do that. Let's reset everything, go to profiles. And for this image, I'm really liking the colors on the after color. But you can also go down. There's a bunch of different options. There's Fujifilm, Belva, there's Prince, there's like Fuji, like everything on there. Almost everything. I don't know if they have everything yet, but with how many options they have, I wouldn't doubt it. Let's take a look at let's see, maybe Portra 400. That's a pretty popular film stock. We're just going to push the image up a little bit. If we go down, we go up, kind of save those highlights a little bit. Yeah, why not? We're just going to compensate with the exposure just a little bit, like that. And I want it to be just a little warmer. Oh, wrong way. There we go. Than what it was. So something like that. All right. So this is just manipulating the source image with exposure, temperature, tint, bit of defringe. And then here, we're gonna go down to film developer. So I like my images just a little bit more contrasty and then boosting the shadows a bit. So let's add a little bit of contrast here. Bit of gamma correction. Just down a little bit. Just to give me some of that contrast back, some of the shadows a bit. I think for that we're good. I don't need to color separate any. I think I'm happy with those colors. The color boost, I don't really want it more saturated. Actually, now that I've brought it fully saturated, maybe a little bit. I'll go to like 5. Alright, film compression. This one's interesting. there's a whole article on the compression that I'll link below. I don't want to explain it in this video because then the video will kind of drag out a little longer than it needs to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to impact it just a little bit, change the white point, some like that. Nice, and I'm happy with that. The expand, I think we might drop it a little bit to there. Yeah, okay. And then with the printing, you can choose specific printing paper even. What else we got? We got print film, Cinelog. Play around with these. You can just do linear, looks really flat, Cinelog film, even flatter. Print, another print, and glossy paper. I like the glossy paper, so we're gonna stick with that. Change the exposure just a little bit, and you notice how the highlights kind of stay where they are on the histogram over here. That has a bit to do with, well, a lot to do with the film compression, but I'll talk about that in another video. Okay, so if we go down, we're gonna play with the color head a little bit. I feel like my highlights are really blue, and I kind of want to change that to a little more red. So we're going to push the reds just a little bit. Magenta, maybe bring back the green a bit, right there. And the yellows, especially in the grass, to something like that. Now I'm also editing on a cloudy day outside, so I can't get super accurate colors to what you may see. So I'm kind of guessing right now. But so far I'm really liking these colors. Let's go with just a hint more yellow, just for the golden hour feel. See if we add some green in there. No, magenta. Now let's go back to where that was. I liked where it was. A little bit more red. No, a little too warm. So back down a little bit to something like that. Now down here, the shadows, midtones, and highlights, this just works with red and blue. So if we bump up the shadows all the way, you'll see how much redder it gets, how much bluer it gets. We're gonna reset that. It'll be more apparent in the highlights. So warmer, colder. So what I'm gonna do for this image is just warm it up just a little, actually maybe cool it down a little bit. Have some of those blues. Then warm it up in the midtones to something like that. Shadows, we're also gonna warm up a little bit. Something like this. Let's drop that out of here. We're gonna move that profile out. And I just wanna see, all right. This is nice and warm. Okay, I'm happy with that. Okay, now the fun part, the grain, or the film grain. So I'll zoom in again. Now there's already some grain on it. We're just gonna disable this layer. And you see how smooth this digital image is? Like, really nice, really sharp. But it just doesn't feel filmic. It doesn't feel natural. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some of this grain. And you can play around with this. For the profile that I shot at, which was Portra 400, this is pretty close to what the grain would be like on Portra. But you get quite a bit of control. You can change the size, the amount, the resolution, and you can even change how much there is with all these effects in the shadows, midtones, and highlights. So what we can do, just to test this out, we're going to drop the highlights completely. And you see how smooth the highlights are now? So if we bump up the shadows, how much grain there is in here. So we're just gonna raise the size a little bit just so it might be a little easier for you guys to see. So let's go with that, there you go. Really easy to see now. You can see how smooth it is in the highlights, how there's almost like no grain. It's like really hard to see, but then right in the shadows, it's just filled with grain. So we can play around with that. We can play with the shadows a little bit here, play with the midtones. Just something that feels a little bit more natural. Of course, the amount's still up, so we can drop that quite a bit to something like that. Maybe back up a bit. Amount here. Bring up the size a bit. Bring it with sharpness. Now let's make it softer, something like that. Up a little bit in shadows, and we're gonna bring the highlights right back up. Yeah, there we go. This grain is feeling really, really sharp, so let's drop that a little bit. Drop the amount. Bring up the size. There. I'm liking that. That's starting to feel a little bit more filmic. Let's see if we just raise it up all the way. And if we bring the size all the way up. Yeah, no, I don't like that. We're gonna go back a little bit. Bring the size down. Bring it down just a bit in the shadows. There. There we go. So, without it, with it, kind of neutralizes things as well. Let's try a positive. See how it looks with positive. Now that grain looks a lot more smooth. I like that. There's another mode on here, analog versus digital. And take a look at this. I don't like the digital. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to analog, and just for now, we're gonna stay at negative because we already kind of dialed in those settings. But this grain looks a lot more natural, and I'm liking it. I'm liking it. So here, let's go back out. Again, before and after. Kind of brings the total contrast down a little bit. So here, let's take a look. Okay, so there's a couple other features on here like halation and bloom. We're gonna dodge those ones for now, and I'm gonna show you those ones in a different photo. We're gonna go down to vignette, and we'll use that one real quick. For this one, we could go for a brighter image. Sure, I don't usually do that. I normally go the other way. I darken the image so then the subject in the middle is more focused. Or an increase here, which, you know what, maybe we'll do. Let's see. Now let's go a little brighter. Let's go brighter. Let's change it up a little bit. And here, from the edges, it kind of brightens up a little bit. Makes the image feel a little bit more airy, a little more just brighter and more inviting. So we're just gonna keep exposure up to something like that. Okay, so let's just take a before and after look at this. So let's go full screen. There we go, and a preview. So this is what we started with, low contrast, and now we made it very warm. We made it feel softer with the grain in the background like this, and grain in the background and the subject. It kind of softens the image a little bit. So if we turn it off, you can see how sharp and smooth this image is because of the digital image. The digital image of this is very smooth, very soft. And if we turn this on, you can see the grain helps soften the image a little bit, makes it feel more nostalgic, a little more real. So here, this is the image. So we're just gonna hit OK, and our image is done. Nice. Saves the image just like that. Now if you need to make any other changes, it's pretty easy. Like for example, you don't like the green just a little bit. You want to change the hue of the green just a little bit, you can change it in here. Because it's more of the yellows here. You can change it greener if you want. You can change it a little more orange. Any kind of little micro adjustments, you can do it easily right after. I feel like it's a little harder to change the colors of the image before, because the app is already slightly changing the colors, as you can see. And you can play around with the color heads as well to get a look that you like more. For the next one, we got a landscape here. Now I got a few things I want to show off in this image in particular. So we're going to, first off, make sure that our tonal contrast is down. We can bring the highlights down just a little bit, and maybe even bring up the shadows a tad. So something like that. There. Now we have a little flatter of an image. You can see here that most of our data is in the center, and that's good. That gives us a lot to work on, or to work with, sorry. So let's go edit this in Dehancer with the Lightroom adjustments. Neato, neato. Okay, so I already made a preset for this, and I really like this. But you know, let's skip the adjustments, and I'll take you into what I did here. So the source did very little on this. On the film developer, did very little, just increased some contrast. And now the film compression. This is what I want to take you to for this image specifically. So if we turn that off, you can see that we could start losing quite a bit of data here. So what this film compression does is it helps just keep some of that data in, and specifically just the highlights. So here, let's turn it off again, and we're getting some of that data back, especially in the clouds here and right over here closer to the sun. It's bringing back some of that data and some of that color. Now you can actually increase the color density in the exposure. There we go. And we can increase the impact just a little bit more. Here's the white point. Now if you decrease it, you'll see that you start losing that data again. And it becomes a little bit flatter, tonal range. So here, let's increase that totally to there. There. We're keeping a lot of detail within the highlights here. There. Some that is a little more smoother of a transition. Effect that you can only really get with film is when you overexpose, you can retain a lot of that detail in the highlights, whereas in digital images, you can retain a lot of the details within the shadows. And we want to mimic the same effect as film, and we want to be able to retain a lot of that detail within the highlights. So we're going to play around with this just a little bit, increase the color density to something like this. Go about there. So here, before and after. Makes the image feel a little bit more balanced, and well, I like that. I like a more balanced image. At least for me. That's how I like images. Now the expand, pretty similar, but a little bit in the shadows. You get a little less control because you lose quite a bit of data within the shadows. So here, we're going to increase this just a little bit to there, so then we can have some detail within the shadows, so you can still tell what's in the shadows. We want to be able to know what's going on in the highlights. We also want to be able to know the information that's going on within the shadows. Not as much, because the sunset's more important, and I think so anyways, but just enough so we know what the foreground is. And that brings that. Okay, and then we come back to the print and the color head. Now we're back to the film grain as well. I have already preset this, so you can see that the grain here in the shadows is pretty nice. I had to increase it quite a bit to get something similar, some smoother transition. So here, let's move down. It looks like I've added some halation and a little bit of bloom. So let's just take a quick little snippet of the halation here and the bloom before we move on to the next image, which is primarily focused on the halation. So over here you see in a higher contrast area where it's brighter up over here and then darker down here. There's quite a bit of red here bleeding into the shadows. So if we turn that off, that's the effect of halation. Now I have another video explaining halation. You can go check it out. So for this video, I'm just trying to skip the explanation on the halation and the bloom. So we'll talk about that in another video. And the bloom over here, let's take a look. How noticeable is it? It's not very noticeable. So what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna save this image. There we go. And now let's change that to there we go. All right, we're gonna open up this image. So let's make sure that our information is pretty well in the center here. So then we can play around with it. There we go. Before, after, now we have a lot to work with here. A lot of data. Now, I haven't made a preset for this one. So let's take a look at some of the film stocks and see what we like. Fuji, Ilford, more black and white. Arrow color. Ooh. Ooh, I'm liking this one. I'm liking arrow color. Look at that. Are there any other arrow colors? Oh, actually, I'm also liking Kodak Color Plus. Oh, no. We're going back to we're going to go to Kodak Color Plus 200, because I like that. I like the look of that. Okay. We've done film grain, and now the fun part, the halation. Now, this is what I wanted to show you on this image specifically. So now, we zoom in on this tree, and we're going to do something like that, amplify quite a bit and increase the impacts. There you go. So on certain parts of the image where there's high contrast with the white and the black, we're going to start getting some of this halation. So if we turn that off, let's see if we can see it from your screen. If not, we're going to zoom in a little bit. Here we go. Oh, there we go. So something like that. You can see it especially right over here near the clouds. See it there in the mask mode. You can also see it if we turn it on and off. On, off, or sorry, off, on. There we go. So what we can do, we can kind of limit that a little bit, decrease the amplification and the impact. Something that's a little more natural to the film and how you might see it on film. Now that feels a little bit more natural, like how you would see it kind of with a film stock. I'm happy with that. And now let's just close these. There we go. And now the bloom. So let's amplify this all the way and impact source limiter. There. You can start to see that this is starting to surround the tree. So what we're going to do is we're going to let's increase the detail a bit. Diffusion quite a bit to here. We're gonna not save the lights, so let's go something like that. And we turn the mask mode. Ooh. It was like it just got like, I don't know, hit by a lightning strike, and it's all midst of blowing up right now. So we're just gonna decrease that. I think we're gonna go back and save the lights a little bit. There. Decrease the details a tad bit and source limit it just a touch. So now we turn the mask mode on. Mask mode on. You can see it's very subtle. Very, very subtle. Which is okay, because we go back. It brings a lot more attention to the tree, which is nice. And we're going to decrease the saturation a little bit. And the impact just down a little bit. So just barely noticeable. But it's enough just to bring your attention right to the tree. Yeah, there you go. A little bit to the sky here as well. We want the viewer to be looking right at the tree, because that is the main subject after all. Oh, you neat. I'm happy with that. And we zoom in again. Turn that off. You can see how dark it's starting to get around the tree. And we're just going to brighten that up a little bit. There, something like that. A little bit of halation to make it feel more like film. And you can see there's quite a bit of film grain, but for this film stock, it seems to be very subtle. We're just going to hit OK on this, and done. Something that we're able to get in just a matter of minutes. You're able to choose film stocks in just a second, and then you can adjust to your preference, however you like your photos to look. And I think the film grain looks amazing. You have so much control. So far, been using it for a few weeks now, and I absolutely love it. I've been putting almost every image that I post on Instagram onto into Dehancer. I like the way that it looks. I sometimes have to make just little tweaks to the colors afterwards, but like I said, they're just little tweaks. It's barely anything after just changing the contrast in Lightroom. Just a little bit of color tweaking after, and then I'm set to go, and I'm uploading it onto my Instagram, using it as social media thumbnails. I'll be making another video on Dehancer, but for DaVinci Resolve. So stay tuned for that. There's a link above and a link below, however you like to click your links. But that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed, and that's how to get filmic images in just a matter of minutes. Have a good one.